Chapter 11. The problem with running away from a scary blob of utter darkness when you were carrying a 115-pound woman was that you had to stop, often. And if you didn't stop often, because adrenaline and fear are making you panic, you started to operate on desperation alone. I was at my breaking point. I stumbled on the slick leaves, almost dropping Susan twice as I ran down the hill. I knew I was on the right track from the rocks I had tucked into the trees, but that hardly mattered. I just wanted to get away. My panic had me in fight or flight mode, and I was definitely fleeing. As soon as the creature was out of sight, the necklace stopped glowing, but I didn't stop to worry about it. I had bigger issues. Was it following me? I couldn't hear anything, but that meant nothing. My feet were creating so much noise that a herd of horses could have been behind me, and I wouldn't have noticed. If it was following me, could I fight it off? My body screamed no. Whatever was happening was the explanation for what had happened to Ryan Holt and all those animals. It was an explanation for Susan's condition. Only it explained nothing. How did a scary blob of darkness kill people? I wasn't far down the path when I heard a different sound. It wasn't growling, but it still scared the crap out of me. It was the sound of metal tearing into metal, and it was coming from the direction I had just fled. A terrible yell reached to the sky, a keening sound of sorrow. I stopped, exhausted and terrified, the yell tearing into my soul. I leaned against a tree, gasping for breath, fighting against the fear. Tears welled up in my eyes. When I had planned this rash act to find purpose, I hadn't thought I would find so much of it all at once. How could I compete with things that didn't make any sense? Should I turn back and make sure no one else was in trouble? The tearing metallic sound abruptly cut off. Then I heard a yell of rage. It roared across the mountain, echoing back to me in triplet. I shouldered the woman and scrambled towards the car, more afraid of that human sound than the inhuman growl. As I stumbled over unseen roots and rain-slicked leaves, a wickedly frigid wind sprung up, bringing with it the smell of smoke and a very disgusting stench, like something evil and dead was being burnt. I choked on the smell. A snapping noise and the sound of feet on the leaves behind me made me freeze again. The blackness had caught up with me. I couldn't run anymore. I was too tired. This time, the necklace wasn't glowing, protecting us from the darkness. I would have to fight. I set the woman down behind a tree and covered her with leaves. If I didn't find help soon, she would die. If I didn't fight off whatever was after us, she would die regardless. Maybe if whatever was killed me first, it would lose interest in Susan, and the hunters could find her. I found a branch and hoisted it, trying to die fighting. The sound of running got closer, and I prepared to defend the two of us. Fear made me braver than I felt. "Get back!" I yelled. The feet slowed but didn't stop. "I mean it! Stay back!" Daniel and Jackson appeared around a bend in the trail. Their shirts were covered in silver liquid, and their faces were grim. I saw violence etched into their faces. When he saw me, Daniel's face changed from violent to surprised. Then he switched to angry. "I told you to stay out of the forest," he said. I felt the wave of relief, and all my adrenaline drained away. The slick stick dropped from my trembling hands. Darkness tried to take me under so I could rest, but I resisted. Daniel started to rush forward to help me, but I flinched at the movement. What was he doing here? He noticed my fear. He stopped 2 feet away from me and lowered his hands. You should have known better, I told him. Hospital. I pointed at Susan. Daniel's eyes flickered to her, then back to me, like he hadn't noticed her lying there. Jackson went to her without a word, his feet silent on the forest floor. You carried her down the mountain? Daniel asked incredulously. Yes. You didn't have anything to do with this, right? Of course not, he said, his voice indignant. His green eyes told me he was telling the truth. Good. A swirl of dots appeared in front of my eyes. Daniel? Yeah? Daniel was watching Jackson check on Susan. I saw the icky dark flashing against the green. I think I'm going to pass out now. I fell forward and felt him catch me before I lost consciousness. She should be awake by now. Why isn't she awake? I heard Daniel say in an agitated voice. She spent all of her energy carrying that woman, son. She's exhausted and rightly so. A warm, rich voice answered soothingly. I felt calm just listening to it. I know that, Han. I just need to know she's okay. That the Night Stalker didn't touch her. If it hurt her, I'll... I imagined him clenching his hands in rage as he paced. She's fine, Daniel, I heard another voice say. This voice was light and perfect, tinted with a British accent. She's just resting. Maybe we should take her to the hospital. They have equipment there that we don't have. I groaned and pushed away the peaceful sleep. Don't! You are such a pain in the ass, Daniel. I'll wake up when I feel like it. I opened my eyes as I said it, the irritation making me instantly alert. Above me was an extremely high, elegant ceiling, decorated like pictures I'd seen of the Vatican in Rome. It was unfamiliar and familiar at the same time. I instantly felt attached to whoever's hand it was that had created the painting. Dark woods and expensive fixtures accentuated the elegance of the ceiling. I heard a melodic laughter and a sigh of relief at my words. You are okay, Daniel said in my ear. I turned my head and saw him crouched down, his face close to mine. Am I? I looked down. I was lying on a large, comfortable sofa with an hand thrown over my legs. The only thing that was off about my appearance was my lack of jacket. As soon as I thought of the jacket, I remembered Susan. What happened to the ranger? Susan, is she okay? Did I save her? Yes, you saved her, although we are going to have a talk about that. His face turned dangerous. I scowled back at him, not sorry in the slightest. He relented after a moment, seeing that I wanted an explanation. After you passed out, Jackson and I managed to get you both back to the road. We found some hunters there who agreed to take the woman in their truck. I figured it was faster than your mom's station wagon. They wanted to take you as well, but I didn't know if that would be such a good idea. Why? He gave me a funny look. Have you ever been to the hospital? Even for a checkup? I frowned, thinking about it. No. Ellen was probably told your blood was different, the woman with a sing-like voice said, which, in your case, it might be. I looked over for the owner of the voice and saw 2 others just behind Daniel looking at me with smiles. Sorry, Daniel apologized. This is Beatrice and Han, my parents. Hi. Unable to stop myself, feeling slightly giddy, I added, Han, as in Han Solo. Do you have a Millennium Falcon? Another round of laughter. And you made fun of me for liking science fiction, Daniel said indignantly. Well, it was funny, I told him, sitting up so that I wasn't the invalid patient anymore. I blinked to clear the dizziness, then looked around. Everything about the room was open and bright. The sofa I was sat on perpendicularly to a fireplace large enough for me to stand in. Large windows and a sweeping view of the forest drew my eye beyond the other sofa. I looked back, wondering that view would be mirrored on the opposite side of the house. It was even more spectacular. The windows framed a view of a large clearing backed by mountains. A small lake lay in the distance. Trees and hedges were everywhere in a pattern of organized growth. To my left were a small kitchen and a short hallway with several doors. Beyond the hallway and kitchen was a large foyer. The foyer framed a massive front door and contained a set of stone stairs that curved around to the second floor. I looked up again and noticed that the second and third floors were exposed to the living room. "It's very nice to meet you, Claire," Beatrice said. I looked at her shyly, instantly struck by her beauty. She was the woman from the vision. Her auburn hair framed her round face, and her smile was exactly as beautiful and kind as I remembered. The man beside her was the one that had been teaching Daniel the periodic table. His smile was kind, but even more wonderful than I remembered. His brown eyes sparkled as if he held the secret of life. They both looked young, 25 at most, except for their ancient eyes, which was weird. They didn't look any older than the memories I had shared with Daniel. "It's nice to meet you, too." I didn't know how to finish. I hadn't really heard a lot about them, except that they were scientists and studied genetics, but I knew how much Daniel loved them. I had seen all the wondrous and amazing things they had done for him over the course of his life. Glanced at Daniel, feeling awkward. How does a person convey that much emotion to someone they've just met? "Han, Beatrice, do you mind if Claire and I talk alone for a minute?" Daniel asked. "No, not at all, dear," Beatrice answered. "We'll be in the tower if you need anything." They disappeared down the hall and through one of the many doors on the right. We looked at each other for a moment when they were gone. Then I put my head in my hands. I was tired, but it was nothing like yesterday's exhaustion. This was more manageable. "Can I get you something?" Daniel asked anxiously. "No, I'm just trying to think straight for our argument." "Are we going to argue?" he asked with a hint of laughter in his voice. I looked up at him in disbelief. "Point taken," he agreed, the laughter spreading to his eyes. I groaned. "I don't know where to start, though. There's so much, and I feel so overwhelmed." "Yes," I agreed. He reached out and cupped his hand on my cheek, as if he had touched me that way forever. "How about we start with the good things and work our way to the less pleasant ones?" "Okay. The vision?" I questioned. "Or should I say the joining?" His eyes turned hard, and he dropped his hand. "Who told you it was called that?" "Margaret. I guess it was talking. I talked to her this morning." "She let you share her thoughts?" he asked, figuring out what I meant. "Yes, mainly because she wanted to threaten me with pain and suffering if I hurt you." I could see him working overtime to figure out what she had told me. "So, what is the joining?" I asked. He took a deep breath. His foot started a slow beat on the floor. "It only happens to our kind when we encounter the person we are meant to be with." "We don't have any choice in the matter?" I asked. "We do," he said carefully. "There's always a choice." "You don't sound certain," I replied. "Ever been in love?" he asked. I didn't reply. He didn't need me to. "You haven't. I saw that much. It's a hard choice. Matters of the heart always are." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. His lopsided grin was sarcastic. He plopped down next to me with casual indifference to the furniture and surveyed the view. "I'm mad at you," he said. I figured. "Want to know why, or do you care?" His words hurt. "I know why," I said tartly. "Whatever attacked Susan found us. There was this darkness, and something was inside it. He grabbed me again and double-checked for injuries. You saw it. Did it hurt you? No, I'm fine. Why were you out there? I asked as he released me again. If I hadn't have known better, I would have thought he kept trying to find reasons to touch me. The same reason Susan was, to find what attacked Ryan. We got hints of it last night after you were attacked. We encountered it in the woods when you saved Susan, but I didn't think... I thought you just got lucky. You ran into it? I asked, remembering the ripping sound and the yell. Let's just say it won't be a problem anymore. I shielded away from the darkness of his tone. Did he mean what I thought he meant? What was it? Why was it so dangerous? He stretched his long legs out, placing his feet on the coffee table. He settled deeper into the sofa, his mind working through an explanation. He bent his head to his chest as he thought. I can't start in the middle. Everything will get muddled. We never got to have our talk this morning, so... Yeah, 'cause you didn't show up, I pointed out. Which I explained, he replied. I was out stopping a murderer before it killed again. Fine. Start at the beginning, I said, putting my feet on the coffee table as well. What do you know? How much did Ellen tell you? She told me my father was a fallen angel. It sounds weird when I say it out loud. She told me the others like us, other half-angels, were out to get me because of some war. Each side hunts for recruits for that war. If you don't get recruited, you die. It's why we move so much. Wow. So you were saying you know nothing? I know the first pop music video was Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, I said tartly. He chuckled. I mean about you. Us. What do you know about our world? I know at 17 we change from human to angel. We become wild and crazy with the desire to kill, I said softly. Ellen said my father was very clear on that point. That's not necessarily true, he disagreed. We have a tough time controlling our lust for death, but we do manage to suppress the feeling, like with the joining, we have a choice. His face was a strange contradiction of honesty and doubt. How do you control it? I asked skeptically. With practice. You've noticed my eyes change color. It wasn't a question. He knew I had noticed. You learn to control the anger that is the gateway into the murderous urges. You learn to hold it at bay. Wait, I said. If we can control our anger, we can stop the killing. Yes, you don't want to make me angry, though, he said, mimicking the Hulk. Oh, no, really? That's horrible. I get that you like the comics, but worst impression ever. He was smiling. I try. I eyed him carefully. Seriously, if we find the strength to control our anger, we don't lose control and go on murdering rampages, destroying towns and chomping up babies? Yes. I let out an explosive breath at his words. He looked at me, understanding the feeling running through my body. His eyes still held doubt, however. Control must be harder than I was imagining. Go on with the story, I said. I'm fine. The fear I would turn into a crazy killer had been haunting me since Ellen had told me the truth. It had followed me as much as the danger of being found. His eyes lingered on mine in concern as he started again. So, the beginning. We've been called lots of things, but most refer to themselves as watchers. Sort of a misnomer, but it stuck. The war Ellen mentioned is real. 2 brothers, Lorian and Darian, are fighting for power. They want control of all our kind, and humans dead. There's a legend that the brother who wins this ridiculous war will have more power than any other watcher before him. They have been fighting for a long time, longer than most can remember. They call it a civilized war, but honestly, I've never seen a war more brutal and bloody. The brothers don't care who dies. They just want to win. A long time ago, a man saw a way to make a lot of money off the war. His business was human trafficking. Watcher trafficking, really. He started a guild he calls Seekers. Their purpose is to hunt down people like you and me and turn us over to the brothers for profit. They have no allegiance beyond money. Those three, the brothers and the Seekers, master, have killed thousands, maybe millions of watchers. It is a threat we must constantly be aware of. It is a threat that does not go away, no matter how far you are from civilization. And what was that darkness in the woods? I asked, sensing a double meaning in his words. A night stalker, he replied. Yeah, 'cause if you say it in that tone of voice, I automatically know what you are talking about, I said irritably. It's easier if I show you. He held his hand out. I hesitated, not wanting to be overwhelmed again so soon after our first shared vision. He urged me with his eyes to touch him, asking that I trust him. Our fingers met, and I felt overwhelming pressure similar to Margaret's mind. He kept the pressure contained, however, not trying to crush me as she had. I saw flickering faces and places rush past in a dark wave. What was that? I asked as the visions died. Nothing. Possibilities. Watch. A scene appeared in my mind. I saw a dark, rain-drenched street. Two lonely figures walked down the street, gas street lights fluttering in the wind. I looked down at the figures from my perch high up on one of the many buildings surrounding us. Then I looked to the left and saw another figure on top of a building, one of the two people hadn't noticed. It looked like a dog, but a dog pulled from a person's worst nightmares. Its ears were pointed like a dog's, and its eyes, which were malevolent red, were framed by a mass of scales. Its massive body was thick with those same black scales. Large claws gripped the roof. The creature resembled an old gargoyle as it perched on its shadowy ledge. Sniffing deeply, it caught the scent of the people. Its dreadful eyes lit up with happy expectation. That was enough for Daniel. I felt a downward movement in the memory as Daniel jumped from his perch to intercept the creature before it attacked the people. The memory cut off, and I knew he didn't want me to see what had happened next. Hell! I said. Yes, he agreed. That demon dog thing was what was in the darkness? I asked, my voice squeaking in fright. Yes. See why I'm mad? Yes, I said. But why was the demon night stalker thing I saw surrounded by darkness? Is that something all night stalkers can do? It's his power, he said. Power? I asked. All watchers have a power, sometimes more than one. It happens with the change. I can see the future, for instance. Not very well, I'm afraid, but well enough. I ignored his strange admission. I was too caught in the meaning of his words. I popped off the sofa. That thing was like us. I said you have a choice. Some choose to cave into the monster and kill. That's the result. We change into that? If we kill too often and start liking it, he replied. It's a curse no one really understands, but it's there all the same. Right. No killing then, I said sarcastically. Let me get this straight. If I can survive the Night Stalkers and Seekers and the war, I still have to deal with losing control and turning into a demon? Excellent nutshelling, he said. Easy for you to say. Not really. You were almost killed today, he said. Nothing about that is easy. But you killed the Night Stalker first, I asked to clarify. Yes. I thought that was bad. His hands clenched. As they did, I remembered something from the first vision we had shared. The vision of him turning into a Night Stalker. It's not going to happen to you, I said, trying to clear the image away. I won't let it happen. That was the purpose I had been searching for. It was suddenly obvious. He kept his eyes on the view beyond the house and didn't reply. I tentatively reached out and took his slender hand, placing my fingers around his. He looked down at our joined hands, then back at me. His eyes were still sad, but he smiled. Does this mean you like me? Absolutely not. Liar. I never lie, I said. Sure you don't. The smile faded. I need you to tell me more about what happened in the woods. I have to understand. How did you get away from the Night Stalker? I was hiking back with Susan when I saw it come out of the woods. I touched the diamond at my neck. Then this started to glow, and that thing acted afraid, like it didn't want to come any closer. I ran with Susan while it was distracted. Daniel picked up the diamond with his free hand and looked at it carefully. This isn't a diamond. Well, it is a diamond, but it's more. It's the tear of an angel. If I'm right, it's your father's. My father's? He nodded. I looked down at the necklace at a loss. This had been my father's tear? Had Ellen known when she had given it to me? I thought these were a myth, Daniel said. Is it an anti-Night Stalker weapon? I asked, pushing aside all my other questions. I honestly don't know what it does, he said. I don't know everything. Do you know why the Night Stalker was hanging around? I asked. Why it killed Ryan Holt? Or even if it killed Ryan? I have a theory. Care to share? Well, Night Stalkers can belong to Seekers. I think Ryan saw something or overheard something he wasn't supposed to, and he was killed for it. Night Stalkers prefer cities because people are less likely to notice disappearances there. Having Seekers in the area who are controlling the Night Stalkers makes sense. Seekers are here? I think so, he replied. Why? He didn't reply. He didn't need to. His voice said it all. Oh, me. They won't mess with us, though, Daniel said. They fear our power, and last time we had a run-in, it got messy. They leave us alone as long as we leave them alone. I knew what I had to do. I should go. Ellen and I should go. I can't stop you, of course, but I don't think that's a good idea. They would just follow you. They are serious about money, and you mean money to them. His fingers tightened on mine. I promise I won't let anything happen to you or Ellen. He was keeping his thoughts behind a cloud of darkness, but a vision of him protecting me forever rose in front of my eyes. My eyes lingered on his lips as the thought caressed my brain. I hadn't gotten to enjoy our other kisses, not the way a kiss should be enjoyed. We were close. A couple of inches more, and our lips would meet. He started to lean forward. Get your feet off my coffee table. Really, Daniel, you know better, Beatrice barked from the hallway. I hurried to take my feet off her table. Daniel did the same. Our moment lost. Sorry, he said. Beatrice gave him a mum look, then took a pile of papers off the dinner table. She disappeared back upstairs with a glare at her son. She's very serious about her furniture. I laughed and looked out the window. Then I frowned. Why was the sun going down? Hadn't I passed out sometime around 10 or 11 this morning? I released Daniel's hand and jumped off the sofa again. I started searching for my keys in frazzled anxiety. Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap! What? He exclaimed, trying hard not to laugh at the look on my face. I promised to pick Ellen up after work. I borrowed her car and... Taken care of. I called her after I found you and, did a little bit of lying. I looked at him suspiciously. What did you say? Well, I told her who I was. She seemed excited to talk to me. I groaned. And that I wanted to take you out to dinner tonight. I told her that I ran into you in the woods while you were hiking, that we had both been searching for the missing ranger. I also told her I would have Jackson bring her car over if she agreed to the date. She seemed willing to agree. Very willing. His face melted into a grin. Did you talk to her about me? I ignored his question. So she's okay? And she didn't have to worry about me passing out or getting attacked by Kojo? Nope. I bent down and hugged him. Thank you. You are welcome. What time does Ellen expect me back? I asked. Not a minute after 10 o'clock. You have school tomorrow. I settled into the cushioned seats again and threw a leg over his lap, suddenly feeling completely at ease with touching him. You got any zombie movies? I asked, picking up the remote to the television. He tried to take it from me, but I slapped his hand away. He laughed. Tons. He gently pushed my leg aside, got up, and started digging for the large entertainment center. I smiled over at him. I hadn't gotten all my questions answered, but at least I had gotten some. Even if they were disturbing, I would worry about the other answers later. What mattered now was that we were together, not as watchers or kids with a terrible secret, but as a boy and a girl totally crazy about one another.